On the go? Download the free andrewhogue.com iPhone and Android app so we'll never be apart.
This is andrewhogue.com, still Australia's first and only 24/7 metal radio station, and it is great news that this band is returning back to Oz. It's been a couple of years. The good news too is that majority of the shows are almost sold out. So let's get reacquainted with Mr. Dani Filth from Cradle of Filth to talk about the Australian tour and a little bit of Ed Sheeran news. We've been waiting, and we'll probably have to wait a while, as well as a whole bunch of other stuff that's happening in your world. Hello, Mr. Filth. Welcome to andrewhogue.com.
Yes, hello. How you doing?
I'm doing well. So again, the welcome return for the shows that are happening in September. And like I mentioned, most of them have already sold, well, close to selling out actually, which is great news. Let's backtrack, I guess. If I asked you in 1992, after the band's sort of formation, that you'd still be A, alive, and B, making music under the moniker of Cradle of Filth, what would be your response?
I'd be surprised. The being alive bit for a start. Yes. Yes. Yeah, well, I mean, when you start a band or start anything big in project wise, you always have this grand vision. When I was envisaging myself being in a band, I was always, like Slayer on a big stage playing in front of a lot of people. I didn't actually imagine playing in front of one or two people and a dog. It was all, grandiose vision, and tried to keep to that. So yeah, I always thought about having, longevity in a career, but I didn't really think it would actually happen. And to be actual fact, I'm 50 years old, and my friend it's my last day in the studio today, pretty much. Last day of the mix, bar a few tweaks. And our producer was actually 51. He's a close friend of mine, known him for ages. Has done everything that Cradle has recorded for like the last 10 years. And we were talking about age, and he was like, I just can't believe I'm 51. I just don't feel it. I said, you look it. Well, we were both saying, yeah, we're 50, and it just doesn't feel like 50. It feels like we've got a lot more legs in us and stuff. And I guess that's just the way things are nowadays. Things have changed in that respect, and people don't look so old, so young, even if they feel it. So yeah, going back to your original question, no, I didn't think, but I'm glad it did. I'm glad I'm still here. I'm glad the band's still doing very well, and I'm very glad the band is coming to Australia in September.
And you're right about the whole age thing, because you think about it, in the 60s, some of those bands had careers for like 8 or 10 years to the 70s, and then there was a new sort of generation of bands that sort of lasted. I mean, Zeppelin was what, 10 years or something like that before, obviously, after Bonham's passing, they just decided to can it. So you think about the fact that majority of bands from the 80s onwards were sort of one of the luckier few, even 90s now, to have longevity, because I believe just the music culture just exploded, where people actually just loved music, which is why it's kept these bands alive and obviously passed down to other generations as well. Are you noticing a sort of generational shift when you do play shows for Cradle of Filth? I mean, some bands are still pulling older fans, but not new fans, whereas other bands are crossing over. Metallica, family band, Iron Maiden, the same. How are you finding the whole?
Yeah, it's weird with Maiden, isn't it? It's a strange one with Maiden, because I mean, they don't sound like Maiden anymore. They sound a bit like Jethro Tull, and I wouldn't expect the youth today to be into that kind of music, but evidently they are, judging by sales and what have you. But yeah, I mean, bands are reaching longevity. It's a new thing, isn't it? Metal's only 40 years old. 45 years old.
Yeah, I think so, now with Black Sabbath, if everyone sort of coins Black Sabbath, 1970, what are we, that's 50, yeah.
Okay, well then, something but like it's still undisclosed, gender with it all, because those people are they're still performing. Ozzy's still performing. Black Sabbath are probably doing a reunion, their 10th reunion show soon or whatever. And they're still at they haven't died. So metal is still in its, you know, infancy. Nobody really knows how it, you know, older people deal, you know, how the likes of Black Sabbath, Led Zeppelin, since the Rolling Stones are still going, you know, well, since the Jurassic period. so, um, so yeah, I think it's an unknown quantity, and it's just good to, you know, that the fans are giving it longevity, and that digital platforms and the lack of actual physical content being sold hasn't affected the music industry too much, and that you know, everybody's still rolling along.
Yeah,
And the pandemic took us all off, which
yeah, of
which
course.
was
Let's talk a bit about the shift in the music industry, because again, you've come from, you know, different eras of the business. And like I said, the bands, you just can't kill them no matter how much it sort of changes. I mean, people tend to say that musicians are generally cockroaches of the business, no disrespect, because they always find a way to survive, because the industry's kind of just caved in on itself the last decade. And now a lot of people don't even know where it's going even now. Like some people saying that streaming is going to drop off because bands aren't getting a fair deal. But that happened when there was physical media as well. Bands weren't getting a fair deal. So it almost like the bands just keep weathering all the shitstorms that just keep coming, and
not only that, it's like touring as well. Buses are more expensive, fuel's more expensive. You know, it does seem like it's everything and everyone against the musician. And you're right, we are cockroaches. We have a very hard, tough exoskeleton. We'll survive that forthcoming nuclear war. Well, yeah, it's about replenishing, you know, fresh blood as well, keeping ideology fresh and interesting, and reinventing oneself. I mean, I guess that's why we have what sometimes is regarded as a revolving door policy. It's not intentional, but it does serve to keep the band fresh, even if it's not, you know, planned beforehand. Well, we'll see. We'll see how like I said, the pandemic didn't kill the music industry off. Digital platforms not paying anyone haven't killed the music industry off. So let's see what other catastrophe can befall us.
Now, you mentioned about keeping it fresh. Now, of course, the last record, The Existence is Futile, came out in 2021, and you said you're just putting the final mixes on the new record. So how does Dani Filth remain motivated, especially with such a long career? And your band's always been very consistent with music and output and the creativity behind the band. So, like I said, you hit 50 and you're like, do you have those moments where can I take this? What are we going to do next? Like, how do you sort of keep it fresh for yourself? And tell us a bit about how the new album's shaping up too.
Well, keeping it fresh is about inspiration. You can draw inspiration from anything. I mean, the only thing is really is if your ideas have been poached by other people. I mean, you know, it gets more difficult as more releases come out, more stuff that's stylistically similar comes out. But as I said, inspiration can come from anywhere, and I surround myself with things I love. So I wouldn't say it's easy, but it's easy. You know, it's in our blood. The new album sounds great. I mean, I can't really describe it other than it's a Cradle of Filth record. It's got everything expect. It's a step forward from the last record. It sounds like the production's amazing. It's very catchy, but it has every element you'd expect. There's blast beats. There's, you know, with the Ed Sheeran song, it probably will end up on our. It's recorded. It's been recorded for about a year. It's great as well. It's not a comedic record. It's exactly what you imagine it would be like. It's Ed Sheeran and Cradle of Filth. He plays acoustic guitar. He sings. He actually pushes himself quite a lot in the last chorus for sure. There's a blast beat in it. Ice cream. Yeah, I think it will surprise people. I think people are very curious as to how it will sound, and they will be answered in that respect, but not for a little while, because it won't go on a new album.
Okay.
Mainly because it was intended to, but it would have meant a big delay for our record, because we've got to kind of balance its release with that of Ed's new record, which is coming out next year. He's taking a year off, And henceforth that kind of delayed what we wanted to do. So there's been a lot of jiggery pokery, um, square pegs in round holes to get
Mhm.
it to work. I mean, we're working with probably the second biggest artist in the world. So obviously when his management says, look, hold five for 10 minutes or whatever, you listen.
Yep, and there
But
goes
it'll
two
be worth
years.
the wait. It'll be worth the wait. It'll come out on a special edition of the new album with a bunch of other stuff anyway. So it'll be totally worth it. And new album is shaping. Honestly, I mean, it's the last day for me in the studio. There'll be a few tweaks. I know there always are. I'll wake up at 3 in the morning Sunday probably with, oh no, I've forgotten to put this in, or this needs
Yeah.
doing. It's always a way, but it sounds fantastic. Very pleased with it.
Now, obviously, metal bands aren't too shy of collaborating with non-metal artists that sort of been going for many years. So, which of the summer collaborations you've heard in the past where you just went, yeah, that just shouldn't have happened?
I don't know. I haven't really heard anything that I thought shouldn't have happened. I like the eclectic. I like the weird. I try and steer. I mean, it's so easy. I mean, I've got so many people that I know in the industry that are in my field of work, extreme metal, that I could collaborate with at any point. But it just there's the rub. There's no point. It's
Yeah.
just going to sound very similar. So I've always chosen things like the Bring Me the Horizon collab, Twisted. When I said I was working with Twisted, everybody was like, "Oh my god, no, commercial suicide." They're
Mhm.
rock, like a rap metal. And I said, "Yeah, but that's the interesting thing. There's a strange juxtaposition happening here, and that's what I like." 69 Eyes, Motionless in White. Yeah, just bands a bit different from Cradle. And the Ed Sheeran thing it was hard to turn down. I mean, we both came up with the idea, and it was like, yeah, this is great. Two different musicians, both living in the same locality. We had a connection with the fact that originally Ed was coming to work on the Nymphetamine album as as part of like a what do you call it, job experience thing when he was at college. It never happened, but um,
Is this before he was mega famous?
it was before he was mega famous, and I think partly we were responsible for his mega stardom because although it didn't happen at our studio, it meant he had to go and work for the borough council of the town in which I live and which is close to him. And he said it was the worst fucking experience he'd ever had, and therefore it pushed him back into music. I think had he come into the studio with us and the producer we were working with at the time, he would have been like, "Oh no, this is the worst thing," and probably left music. So everything happens for a reason, and it's
Yeah,
good that
absolutely.
things turn full cycle, and that he's acknowledged or tipped his hat to his origins and done a song with someone that. And I mean, he's done loads of collabs, but I think this is probably one of his strangest.
Now, again, just covering some of the past stuff, if you were to just pick one era that was your favorite time in Cradle, excluding the present day, what would that sort of be? Where you just look back and go, yeah, that was a good era.
Midian, because it was a new lineup, new record company. We went into Parkgate Studio. It was our first time working at Parkgate. We did 3 albums there, and it was magical. We were like kids, going up, but it's like 5, well, 6 go on holiday in the south of England for 4 months. It was just amazing. It was summer. We were in a residential studio. We all had our own chalets. It was all very exciting. It was an amazing part of England as well. Near Battle, where Battle of Hastings happened, and yeah, it was just fucking brilliant. Everything about it was amazing. Very magical.
Do you look back on that era differently because look at today? I mean, the convenience of home studios, it just takes away all that stuff. And do you sort of miss some of those times of just, being
Absolutely. I
in
mean,
the studio? Because it's definitely a different era. A lot of newer bands just will never understand or experience, or they'll just look back and go, why do people cut to tape? Or we'll just use Pro Tools and plugins, and like everything's so easy. So it's almost like there is no struggle when, again,
Well,
in that,
I would beg
that
to
era.
differ because I'd
Okay.
beg to differ because after the pandemic, there was a lot of albums that were recorded during lockdown by people who thought they could do the job, and there were some fucking truly abysmal sounding records. Um, and it's like you pay monkeys, you get peanuts. It's the same thing. You've always been able to, if you wanted to, do an album at home, but it doesn't take, it's like you're going to record a guitar through a digital effect. You're going to record it through a fucking great, amp that's got, um, components in that were stolen from submarines and what have you.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's about quality over quantity. Yeah, if it's like working with a producer. A producer is someone that his primary job is there to do that and that alone, and probably went to God knows how many colleges and universities to become that astute at his job. Yeah, the music industry has changed drastically. Obviously, it's got cheapened the deal. What with nobody getting paid for records, or being streamed on digital platforms, and it's getting harder to tour because of the price of fuel, price of tour buses, price of flights. Only a couple of days ago, the visa entry into America went up by five times the amount, I believe.
Wow.
Yeah, it's like £1,600 now for one person, and that's not guaranteed entry either. So you could end up spending for a touring band £20,000 just to get into America, which is a profit for about a good few days touring at least.
Yeah, that's ludicrous.
So yeah. I mean, I do miss those days, because not because we were like. I mean, we were, in some respects, living the life of Riley and royalty almost. But it was about, for example, for Nymphetamine, we took ourselves away for 2 weeks to a mansion, well, a big house, a big country house in Wales, and locked ourselves away and literally wrote the whole album there and then in 2 weeks. And it was a great experience. We partied us, asses off as well. And it's something that hasn't been done for a while because it's just a huge expense.
Yeah.
Nowadays, you channel that expense into the actual studio. I do have my own little home studio, but it's only for things really like to demo. And if there's a specific part, like I find it kind of challenging to do some of my very high stuff very early in the morning. But my producer finishes at 6 because he's got a family. So sometimes if I'm like, well, it's 9 o'clock in the evening and I really feel like singing, I'll go up there and some of the stuff will end up on the record because of it. So that's kind of helpful, but it's all means to an end, and it wouldn't definitely not replace being in with a great producer because it would just sound shit.
Do you find that the bands are also missing out on that jamming together and writing together? Because everyone
absolutely, yeah, you can tell
scattered.
with an album.
They send their parts and they're doing stuff in their bedroom, and here's the file. Okay, like I said, we're in a convenience age, but I'm finding that some bands, especially once they get together and start playing live, you can tell that they haven't connected. They've connected virtually, but in person as a unit, I mean, that takes a while, especially live. You can really see it. I don't know if you've noticed that a little bit more about bands today, where they'll pull all the record together, and then they'll get together live, and it's just, I'm head down playing my part, but they're not connecting. I'm just sort of seeing that more and more.
Yeah. I mean, there's plenty of albums I hear, and you can just hear it was all done on, quantized to fuck on Pro Tools.
Snap to the grid.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, let's quickly check out the tour dates because we don't have it for too long, but it is a welcome return for Cradle of Filth for the Australian Invasion Tour 2024. Now, the first show kicks off on Tuesday the 24th at the Metropolis venue in Fremantle in Perth, Wednesday the 25th at the Gov in Adelaide, Friday the 27th of September at the Northcote Theatre in Melbourne, Saturday the 28th of September at the Metro in Sydney, and on Sunday in Brisbane. on September the 29th at the Trifford. And again, a welcome return for the band coming back to Oz, so we are looking forward to it. We can get you to choose, let's go 2 songs, one from the last record, The Existence Is Futile, and just one of your favourite Cradle jukebox classics.
Now put me on the spot now, because I'm awful at choosing anything. Indecision. Okay, well, we'll just go with the track Existential Terror then, from the last record.
Yep.
And oh my god, something from the past. Let's go for Under Huntress Moon. I don't know why, it's just because it's the first thing that jumped in my head.
Well, there we go. We'll get into some Cradle of Filth right now here on andrewhogue.com. Look forward to having you back in Oz very, very soon, Mr. Dani Filth. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much. Very much looking forward to coming. Tickets are selling very quickly. I think across the board it's about 70% now, but Melbourne is about 91, 92. So they're going to go any day now. And yeah, great support band in the shape of Infected Rain as well. Really looking forward to playing with those guys. They're actually label well, I don't know, I can't remember if they're label mates, but they're certainly on our management roster. So yeah, really looking forward to it. Can't wait. And I'm sure the weather's going to be better than it is here in the UK. Well, just generally.
Possibly. So, but again, Australia is renowned for weird weather as well, but nothing as miserable as the UK.
Well, that's fine, because we're weird. That'll do.
All right, let's check out some Cradle of Filth right here on andrewhogue.com. Thank you, Dani.
My pleasure. Thank you. Take care. See you soon.
Thanks, buddy. We'll see you soon.
Yeah, no worries. Bye.
Take care.